Hi, I'm Sorrel Tolkman, and this is Big British News. Today we welcome on critically acclaimed author Jane Austen of infamous novel Pride and Prejudice. Please welcome Mrs. Jane Austen. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
How are you today?
Best I've been since 1817, not gonna lie.
Wow, that's amazing to hear. And may I ask you about your upbringing and your childhood?
Well, I was born in 1775 to a seemingly large family. I was the second youngest, and I was influenced mostly by my older sister, Cassandra, probably.
Wow, fascinating stuff. And I think we can all make the assumption that Pride and Prejudice is one of the most influential novels, potentially of all time. Can you tell us a bit about what influenced that novel?
Well, personally, my family life influenced it a lot. With my father, he worked a lot in trying to raise our family, and also just the way people treated him in society wasn't the best. They didn't have a lot of decorum towards him. They were really rude towards him just because of his social status. And then also just the fact that my sister married someone who had a lower social status, and I found that they weren't treated as well.
Besides influential family factors, were there any societal or cultural factors that also influenced the novel?
Well, definitely, I would say the French Revolution. 40,000 people died, and it just was so interesting to see. Obviously, as a rich person, I wasn't in it as much, but I was worried. And it was really interesting to see how, in such a short period of time, they were able to change such big social norms. And just the fact that they were able to overthrow the rich and try to gain a new form of freedom.
Crazy stuff. Could you give us a little synopsis of what Pride and Prejudice, for our viewers that may not know, may not have read it?
Pride and Prejudice is a novel about a young woman named Elizabeth. And basically, it's about her upbringing and how she's been put at a lower social class due to her family life, and basically the fact that people don't treat her as well, and how she works to overcome that. It's also about how she works to try to find love during that time, even though she's stopped by the pride that she holds within herself and the pride that her potential lover, Mr. Darcy, holds, and also just the prejudices that they hold against each other.
And do you think the movie Pride and Prejudice and Zombies reflects the book well? And welcome back, and can you tell us a little bit about what this book means to you personally?
Well, personally, I wanted to write about the struggles that my family faced under the social class norms that are in a society right now. And basically, I just wanted to write about how you get treated with a certain amount of disrespect depending on your wealth, and even the fact that I had to write it under my brother's name, because my own name is, as a woman, I didn't think it'd give as much credibility to it.
Truly crazy stuff in this world today. And welcoming on scholar Caroline McDonald to give us a modern perspective on Pride and Prejudice.
Okay, thank you. So,
welcome on, Caroline.
Thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. She didn't ask me that, but thank you for asking me.
So, in modern times, a lot of theorists analyze Pride and Prejudice under the theory of epistemology, which is the idea of where our knowledge comes from and whether we should trust it or not. In particular, the scene with Elizabeth and Lady Catherine comes to mind, wherein Lady Catherine is telling Elizabeth about the faults of her upbringing, telling her how she should have been raised, and basically saying that that's the fault for why she wasn't married sooner, or her sisters weren't married sooner. And this is the interpretation a lot of feminists take when explaining the feminism behind Pride and Prejudice, that, well, a woman shouldn't have to follow certain social types to be married. But it's within the idea of epistemology that Elizabeth is actually just holding a grudge, and that the knowledge given to her was actually fine, but because it was given to her by someone she didn't necessarily like or trust, it wasn't valued. That theory comes up several other times throughout the novel, but that is what we look at within the modern scope as the central idea of the novel.
Wow. I don't know how to respond to that.
I definitely agree with that, though. No,
Me too.
Yeah, I definitely think that's part of where I was going with writing that scene. I wanted to focus on the fact that Lady Catherine was disapproving, but she didn't critique Elizabeth per se. She just critiqued the way she was raised, and it was more focused on the central idea of why Elizabeth didn't like it was not because it was false. It was about because she felt judged. Yeah.
And why did you write the ending of your novel the way you did?
Well, I really wanted readers to take away the two couples mostly, Bingley and Jane and Darcy and Elizabeth. I basically wanted them to take away with Darcy and Elizabeth how they both had to overcome these prejudices that were set for them earlier on in the novel by different people. And they also had to overcome the pride that they felt within each other to hold these prejudices. And eventually they had to face the common relationship that they felt between them and the connection, and realize that was meant more than the prejudices that they were wrongly holding. And then for Bingley and Jane, they had to overcome the social relationships and the social struggle of being in different classes and how it felt for the two of them to be in different social spheres.
And did you have any questions that you wanted your readers to think about after reading this novel?
Well, I really wanted them to think about what own prejudices they were holding within themselves and grudges that they held that maybe weren't as important as when they first gained them. And I also just, regarding my sister had a relationship like the one Bingley and Jane had, and just opened their eyes to the fact that that not everything needs to be judged, that love is something that can't be judged sometimes, and it's not unexplainable. So yeah, I wanted them to take away those two little tidbits.
And do you think that has anything to do with modern feminism?
This is not a feminist novel.
Wow, what a truly fascinating interview. On next week's Book Talk, we'll be interviewing Jeff Kinney of the Diary of the Wimpy Kid series and his book number 2, Roderick Rules, and its implications on society and how it affects readers today. Thank you for joining Big British News. I'm Cyril Tolkmit, and I'll see you next week.
Breaking news, I'm the greatest. I be getting on a daily basis. I ain't afraid.